In this chapter, I will continue modeling the Viking shield, making some adjustments to the shield boss as well as adding a metal rim and a decorative symbol representing the pagan god Odin. Additionally, the widely used subdivision surface modeling workflow will be introduced, as well as some useful techniques for modifying meshes, such as using the Swift Loop tool for inserting additional edges into your topology. Before we get started, I wanted to remind viewers I am only releasing a limited selection of this course's 26 video tutorial chapters for free. If you would like to get the full class containing over 9 hours of recorded content and production-ready 3D models, it is available for only $7.99 and can be found on Gumroad by clicking the yellow button on the screen below. Or, if you have a Steam account, you can find a link to my Steam store page in the YouTube video description associated with this video. Alright, before we actually jump onto the shield again, what I want to show you is the reason for the changes I'm going to be making in a minute. The thing that I noticed is whenever you actually zoom close to some of these shields, the center part here, the boss, is actually kind of connected together. It's not a separate piece of metal, so they probably had something solid that they tapped this around. I really don't know. But I want to make sure that my piece echoes that. The other thing you'll see here too is on the edge here, the metal kind of goes around what looks like maybe was just the round piece of wooden shield. So if I look really close up here, you can see what feels like the metal that wraps around the wooden edge. So it looks like you have a solid wooden shield with some metal pieces around the edge, which would probably be useful for fending off blades and things like that to keep it from being hacked apart. So that's what I'm going to go through and change on my piece so that it reflects those. So what I'm doing now is I'm hiding all of my background planes, and since I have the really nice shield reference here, I'm just going to match it 1-to-1 and scale it up. Might as well, because it'll look better. And I've turned my objects into see-through mode by right-clicking them, choosing object properties, and then see-through mode. What I'm doing now is just going through and using some tools to delete out parts of the shield I don't want. Now the center part of the boss I like, so I'm just selecting the exterior of them, and then in edge mode shift, dragging or scaling in order to extrude those out. And now that boss is connected as one piece. The outer part of the shield, I really only care about the center flat parts, so that's where I'm rescaling this and changing it. One tool is kind of cool underneath the graphite modeling tools I use all the time is the Swift Loop tool. Click that and then you see where this is green. Once you're satisfied, you let go, and it enters edge loop into your mesh. Super useful. So what I'm going to do here is actually make a clone of this object, and then the outer rim I will extrude so that I can add as that metal, just like I was doing with my axe earlier. So I made the clone, then duplicate that, and then change it. And then I tried to make the thickness of the metal about the same as that little edge of the emboss. And the other thing I'm going to do here is actually take my boss and then attach it to the edge rim. And the reason I'm doing this is I'm going to chamfer each of these edges and I want them to be similar. But I do that by adding a reset X worm. And once you do that, and then you select the edges, it'll make sure that those chamfers are pretty much exactly the same. If you've ever tried it before without resetting an X-form, you can get some kind of weird results happening on the chamfer. So now I know that all of them will be similar. And in the end, ZBrush, it probably won't actually keep those together, but for now it's fine. So it looks like the back of the shield probably has a metal thing too, so I'm going to select that out and put it in. And also I'm going to decrease the wood size because it just felt a little bit too big. And the wood as well, I'm going to chamfer that and try and get it about the same thickness of the metal. Little things like that will just kind of look nice if I happen to see the edge of it whenever I do my final renders. And now I'm just going through turning off my see-through modes on my asset and deleting some of the polygons that I don't need. And go ahead and add some basic viewport colors to this that are more representative of what the actual material properties are, wood for wood, metal for metal, and then I'm using the connect tool here to add some additional subdivisions to the shield. although I probably won't need them because I'm going to go into ZBrush and Dynamesh this. So the next thing I'm doing now is I want to add a pretty cool looking Odin design within the shield, and I don't want to just do it with texture paint. I actually want to make this like a metal design so it really pops, similar to what Mark had originally in his concept. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is actually just create a standard primitive plane. And I'll do this because I want to match the Odin symbol really nicely. And it just so happens that the Odin symbol is very perfect in using an angle snap tool. I can do it at 5-degree angles. Now, I've got these extra edges in here I don't want. The cool thing is you can select them all and then do Control Backspace, and that'll delete all your edges and vertices you don't want in edit poly mode. So next thing I'm going to do is I notice around the center of the emboss, if I was to actually build based off what you see in that white design, it's going to be a little bit too close to the metal for the sign to read as well. So you'll see that I actually have a little bit of additional space in between the circular part of the center emboss and then where my actual shield pieces will be. It'll be a little bit easier to see in a few minutes. So all I'm doing right now is setting up the 3 different sections of the Odin symbol that I can work on. And add the part here for the curves, and I try to match the geo pretty closely to what's happening with the center of the boss and other shapes that I want it to be close to, just so that it's more accurate whenever I subdivide these later on. And here, just fast forwarded, what I end up doing is making these edges feel a lot thinner. I did originally have a thicker part of the design where it was solid all the way through, but I think that these thinner parts that I'm doing now are going to read a little better. And what you're seeing me do now is add supporting edges to anywhere I have a corner. So anywhere there's going to be polygons that meet at a corner, I know that I'm going to subdivide this later in ZBrush. So if we don't want those really sharp corners to smooth out, I go in and add some subdivisions. So here what I did really quickly is I didn't select all the polygons. I do a small inset because not only do I want corner support, but I want edge support here so that it feels nice and sharp. That's like something that I'll probably do on my axe a little bit later when I'm preparing that for ZBrush. And now I move it back to the surface. I'm going to add a shell. And I know what the shell is doing. If it was a wireframe, you'd see it, but it was going to the interior. Move that towards the top of the wood there. And switch this to editable poly mode, and then I'll just kind of move this around a bit so that I get some nice curves and can continue to support the edges of the topology. So now if you select like an interior exterior edge and then you click the loop tool, if your topology is nice, you'll see that you can really quickly select all your edges. Just a nice little feature to have. And over the next 30 seconds or so, you're going to see me do a combination of selecting different edges and then adding new topology where I need support around those edges. You'll see here, yeah, I went through and in that blackout part I added some more subdivisions. So anything I'm selecting right now is going to get a chamfer. And after I select everything, I always do a quality check and make sure that I actually get all the pieces. And right here, for example, you can see I missed one little corner. So it's good to check that, because if you don't, and then you add this chamfer, you'll get some bad topology in the end, not so clean turbo smooth or subdivision on the asset. So now I think this looks pretty good. I'll go through and actually chamfer this and get something that feels okay. And I'm not too worried about the topology being super clean because I'll take this in ZBrush later and Dynamesh it. But for now, if I was only going to be in 3D Studio Max, if I added Turbo Smooth on this, this holds up pretty nicely. It feels really sharp and clean. So that's a good desired result. So I want to show you an example of where this smoothing can be problematic. So I've just taken this object as is without adding the supporting edges. Now I'm going to turbo smooth it. And now you'll see that pretty much all of my supporting edges, everything gets kind of messed up. Now, I could go through and just simply take everything like this and now add a very tiny chamfer to this, and even this one I'll get fairly good results, but at the same time it's still not perfect. Like around here, around the edges, you can see that there's some strange things going on with the polygons. That's where I like to keep my stuff laser sharp with the other method. Now, for those of you that have some familiarity with ZBrush, like I have the same model in ZBrush, and there is a method that's pretty handy to use that whenever you're subdividing, by default the smooth will be on. So of course if you subdivide right now, it's going to do the same thing we had in Max. But if we undo that, turn off the smooth, and then you divide a few times, let's divide it like 4 times. This means it's subdividing, but it's keeping the edges sharp. Now if you hit smooth and you subdivide, you'll see that it keeps the edges relatively sharp, and then we have the correct amount of detail that we can go in and start doing sculpting and those kind of things. The reason that I do add the supporting edges though, because I go into ZBrush, is if you have anything that's curved here, this is really minor, and in hindsight I probably shouldn't have spent all that time adding the support edges, but you can see that it retains some of that polygonal form, and that's what I try to avoid whenever I'm doing hard surface sculpting and I want to set something in ZBrush. So yeah, hindsight, probably not that big of a deal, but I do know that I have something that's laser sharp now, so I kind of hope that makes sense, but definitely play around with these 2 different methods. That is all for Chapter 2. Tune in again next Thursday when we model the Viking sword with a combination of powerful 3ds Max modifiers and edit poly techniques. Additionally, we will tweak the composition of our shield, axe, and sword. See you next week! Everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. If you would like to see more of my personal and professional art, please check out my Facebook artist page by searching for Art of Seth Thompson in Facebook. I also have an Instagram where I post daily about my art and various adventures like surfing. You can find me there by searching for Seth Thompson Art. Thanks again for watching, and I look forward to bringing you more excellent content soon.